It's the Arch Advocate Show. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for hitting subscribe. Thanks for hitting share. Thanks for telling a friend. And also, for those of you that contribute to the show with dough, thanks for the money, man. We've got three things to get to today. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban gives the middle finger to the EU. So it would appear that very realistically, the next world war will begin once again in Hungary. I'm going to break that down for you. Kavanaugh, Judge Kavanaugh's, shall we say, his love life gets called into the question. And then the final segment today, news segment, Bible stuff. I'm going to be breaking some things down here for you. If you are an atheist, please stick around. All right, you might find that we have more in common than you think. Back to Hungary. All right, now exactly 104 years ago, the world did something that it had never done before. Everybody in it decided to start killing one another, right? World War I. And it started with a single bullet, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand. And this happened in what was then what was called the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It happened in Sarajevo, which is now like Bosnia or whatever. But back then, it was Hungary, right? That was Hungarian land for all intent and purpose. So that was for those of you who know your world history, that was like the most gruesome war that we have on record. I mean, it was that war where after everything was done and everybody had kind of sobered up and come to their senses, they decided to set down some rules. Like world rules as it applies to war, right? You can't be using mustard gas on people. You can't be doing this. You have to, there's certain ways that you can treat prisoners of war and that sort of thing. Like it was so brutal, that war, that when it was over, people kind of woke up and realized, like, wow, we've really got some stuff to work on internally as human beings. Like there's certain things we can't allow to ever happen again. It was that bad. I mean, I could tell you stories. My great-grandfather, a man that I knew very well, he died when he was 94 years old. I knew this guy, right? And he fought in the First World War. He was in the trenches in France, and he used to tell me stories. Like, this is a guy that I knew. You know what I mean? Of course, I was very little, but, this is the guy that took me to the zoo, me and my brother, and, I was close to that guy. So I knew somebody who was in World War I. But the point is like, look, there is a history with Germany, right? Germany tried to take the world over in World War I, and they came very close. Right? Norm Macdonald makes this joke. By the way, Norm Macdonald has a new show on Netflix. I recommend you check it out. Norm Macdonald's very funny, but he makes this joke like they tried to conquer the world in World War I, and they came very close. And then just a few years later, they tried it again, and once again, they came very close. Right? I made this observation about a week or so ago. Like, look. I don't know if you know what actually happened, but Germany actually won that war. They did take over Europe, and it wasn't even close. You know what I mean? Like, they won. And if it were not for the United States, like, Europe would be goose-stepping right now. And this is important. Like, you may think like, oh, what's this a podcast about? Is he's talking about Hungary or whatever? It's like, dude, this affects you. Trust me. Just hang out for a little bit, and I'll bring this all the way around. You're gonna see, like, this. Look, everything affects everything, right? You can come at this any way you want. You can be a hippy-dippy person like, oh, man, just try peace, not war, man. There's, you can come at it economically. You come at it whatever way you want. But the fact is like this, Hungary is a hotbed. And the things that are coming out of Hungary right now, they are going to affect you. They are affecting you. And I will explain that, right? But again, you got to hang out for a little bit. Right now there is the European Union. All right, there's 28 countries in the European Union, and Germany is the ring that controls them all, right? There is a European Union, and Germany is the head of it. And whoever the Prime Minister of Germany is, you know what I mean? Like, as Germany goes, the EU goes, right? It's like in the United States, we have 50 states, but, you know, the executive office, you know, kind of guides the whole thing. That's how that works. And so in the European Union, there's 28 countries, but listen, quit screwing around. It's Germany. And Germany has a well-documented history of trying to take over Europe and succeeding. Do you understand that? Like, it's not like, yes, Germany lost, you know, the war, but it was in the it was in the 11th hour, right? Or the 23rd hour, whatever, however it is that you want to put it. It was at the very end. Up until then, you know, in World War I and in World War II, Germany conquered Europe. And when you're talking about like the civilized world, that's conquering the world. You know what I mean? Like, you go back into, if you go back in history and look at like the Roman Empire. Well, it's not like Rome ruled South America. You know what I mean? There was a lot of places that Rome did. Rome ruled the known world, the civilized world, the rich part of the world. Well, that's what Europe is, right? Europe is the Western world. Europe is the civilized world, and anybody who controls that controls the world. Germany conquered Europe, you know, beginning in what was it, 1914, right? That's when Franz Ferdinand was assassinated. That was the kickoff to, you know, World War I. Then they conquered the world in World War II. And now there's a European Union that Germany is the head of. They have accomplished, once again, conquering the world, only this time without bloodshed, right? So it is significant, because it's like, well, if they've done it without bloodshed, then how far away are we from bloodshed? What sequence of events would have to happen in order for there to be bloodshed? Right? Like, I mean, if we're going to move forward, we have to take from the past and use that as a compass to try to predict the future. Do we not? Is it possible? Does Germany have a history of doing that? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, we have to kind of navigate our way. So here comes Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban. This was last week, right? This was just a few days ago. And he stands up in front of, you know, the European Union, and he says, hey, listen, you people, here, let me give you a little bit of a backstory. Hungary has decided that they are not going to participate in the subsidizing or even acceptance of importing a bunch of people from other parts of the world who have a religion that says that they have to kill Christians and Jews, right? They've said, listen, we're not doing that. We're not going to participate in that, and we're certainly not going to pay for it. What we are going to do instead is we're going to actually build some fences and keep those people out. And they have kept millions of people out of Europe. These are people that, you know, the bleeding hearts will tell you, like, oh, these are just Syrian refugees who are doctors and lawyers and engineers, and they've been bombed out of their houses because Syria is a war zone, and they're just trying to protect themselves and their families. But it's not. That is not what's happening. People are coming over the Mediterranean. They're coming from Africa, and they're coming into Europe, and they're going immediately on welfare. So they're draining the resources of their enemy, which that is a wartime strategy, right? Bleed your enemy of their resources. And meanwhile, they're going around splashing people in the face with acid and going on machete attacks and driving cars through crowds. Like, it's really bad, right? Those are the facts. So Hungary has said, no, we're not doing that. And the European Union's response to that was, well, then you are in breach of the contract that you signed with us. You said you wanted to be a part of the European Union. You signed the paperwork, and now you have to do what we tell you to do. Now, Viktor Orban is standing up and saying, well, then I guess we don't need to be a part of the European Union then, huh? Because we're not doing this. And many times in this speech that he made last week, he cited, this is what I really like about this. He cited, look, we are a major contributor to the history of Europe and Europe's Christian history. And we have spent our treasure and we have spent our blood developing Europe as a Christian people. And we're not going to allow people to come into our country who hate us because we are Christians, right? So what that does is it draws a line in the sand and says, now let me make this very clear. There are only two sides to this, right? If you want to continue to be somebody who is ashamed and repulsed and offended by your Christian heritage, then you belong on that side of the line and you can go over there. But if you are proud of your Christian heritage, if you are proud of the fact that Europe and the Western world is solely a byproduct of Christianity in the West, and you're proud of that, and you love it, well then this is the side that you need to be on. And there are only two sides. There is no middle ground on here. There's no middle ground here. There are people coming into our country, raping our women, bleeding us of our resources, and splashing people in the face with acid. If you want to be their champion, then you belong on that side of the line. But those of us over here, like, we're not doing that. And if you would like to be on this side of the line, come one, come all, right? So this is a powder keg of possibilities, because once again, right, Germany is in charge of Europe, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how this could possibly go? Germany's been the one subsidizing and paying for people from Somalia and Eritrea and the Sudan to come into Europe. These people with absolutely no marketable skills, no work ethic, and the only real thing that they have to offer is a hatred of everything West. Right? Germany's been paying for that. Now, how badly can this possibly go? Now, think about this. The European Union is going to have to do something about this Viktor Orban, right? They can't just let that slide. And if you want an example of that, just look at Brexit, right? The people of Great Britain voted unanimously that they wanted to get out of their ties to the European Union. And because of that, the European Union has dumped all kinds of resources into trying to get British people to fight with one another over this issue. They've made threats. They've tarnished the reputations of people. Like, it's been very bad. And out of all of that, there's even now in Europe, there is a ban on funny pictures, memes. You cannot say things that offend leftists anymore. It's against the law, and they will come to your house and arrest you for making funny little memes. That's where those people are at. Now, you might think that that's some small thing. I assure you it is not. Not given the history. Right? Not given these people's history. Germany is in control of the European Union. So, you know what I mean? Like, it's no small thing that Germany conquered the world twice in the last 104 years. Do you understand that? Like, it's 104 years. That's not a lot of time. You see what I'm saying? Like, I knew a guy I was close to and knew very well a guy that was alive then and fought in that war. You know what I mean? It wasn't that long ago. And in that very short amount of human history, Germany conquered the world twice. And now it would appear that they've done it again. And they have a history of doing so. And you look around, well, I don't want to get too far into that, but look, what are the options now, right? Well, what is Germany doing with England? Well, they're suing them, and they're getting ready to sue them again because there's a deadline with the Brexit thing, and then if that doesn't go through in the way that the European Union wants, they're going to sue once again. Now, the same thing is about to happen to Hungary. Now, Hungary, the Prime Minister of Hungary came out and he said, listen, you people, you've pushed us too far, you've said too many lies about us, you've got double standards here and double standards there, and I don't think you people have any qualifications for saying these horrible things about us that you are. The fact is this is our country, we are a sovereign nation, and we're not letting people in that we don't want. We're not letting people in who want to come in and rape our women. We're not going to do that. We're a Christian nation. We've already poured enough of our own blood, the blood of our young men, to ensure a safe and prosperous Europe. No more. We're not doing anything more. We're going to continue to build our fences and keep people out that we don't want out, that we don't want in our country. So what is the European Union? When I say EU, Germany, right? In fact, I'm just going to keep calling it Germany. Every time I say Germany, just think the EU. So what is Germany's response going to be? Well, it's going to be lawsuits at first, right? Brexit at first was just lawsuits. Now there is a ban on speech. You can't use memes on the internet that might hurt other people's feelings. There was a new Article 13. This was just a couple of weeks ago. A new law in Europe. You can be convicted of something that is not a crime anymore. Now. You can now be in Europe. You can now be convicted of something that is not a crime. It's written that way. You should see it. It's pretty crazy, but that's where we're at. And so, what happens when Germany levels lawsuits against Viktor Orban and Hungary? Well, they're just going to say, well, good luck getting us to show up in court. Now what? Right? Like the whole thing about law and order is that like both sides have to participate. You know what I mean? And if one of those people don't participate, then it's like, well, now what are you going to do? You say, well, Pete, that's a little confusing. What are you talking about? Let me give you a good example. China steals the patented intellectual property of the United States and other parts of the world every day, every single day. They steal technology from Apple, they steal technology from Microsoft, they steal technology from everybody. They steal nuclear secrets, they steal all kinds of stuff. You say, well, why doesn't somebody do anything about that? Well, here's what we do. We go to them and we say, look, you are in violation of international law, and we need to take you to court and prosecute you because you keep stealing our stuff. And China says, oh, okay, well, good luck getting us to show up to court there, round eye. Good luck, right? You go enjoy your little day in court. And it's like, okay, well, now the United States has a decision. Are we going to drop it because we can't make those people show up to court? Or are we going to go to war? Well, we're certainly not going to go to war because China buys too much of our stuff. We need we need that money. That's what it comes down to. Why is it that China keeps stealing, and they do it openly? They'll stand up and say, yep, we stole that. We took it. What are you going to do? What are you going to do about it there, round eye? And the answer is nothing. We're not going to do anything because the only thing you can do is go to war. And we're certainly not going to do that because I'm not going to go to war with you because you stole my stuff. We're not going to see millions of people be put to death, because of, collateral damage in war. We're not going to do that over you stealing our stuff. That would be uncivilized, right? But there's a certain point where like it gets to be too much, and the fact that we don't go to war is it's kind of a testament to our resiliency and our Christian nature, why we don't do that. But that's us. That's not everybody. right? So here's Viktor Orban of Hungary saying, yeah, you know what, we're not going to participate anymore, and we're not going to abide by your rules. Your rules are telling us that we have to pay to import people who hate us. We're not doing that. And if those are the rules, then I guess we're just not going to participate in the game anymore. So what's Germany's what are they going to do in response? They're going to file lawsuits. And given what I know about Viktor Orban, you go look at the footage. Go onto YouTube and just type in Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban speech or whatever. You go look at that guy. You tell me, what do you think that guy's going to do? That guy looks like he's going to go out in the back alley and whoop somebody's ass. That is not a guy that looks like he can be pushed around. So when the EU comes in, when Germany comes in and starts suing him, he's probably just going to say, well, I'll tell you what, you enjoy your day in court, because we're not going to be there. What are you going to do about it? Well, I'll tell you, one of the options on the table is Germany goes all Germany again. Starts a blitzkrieg with a panzer division and pulls up to the border of Hungary like they did Poland. That's one option. I'm not saying that is going to happen. And God forbid that does happen. But listen, Germany has a history, y'all. They have a history, and they're very ashamed of that history. But the fact is, it's like that's your history, though, and it's not like long ago history. This was, starting 104 years ago, and then once again starting, what was that? Let's just call it 67, and then starting again about 80 years ago. Right? There are people alive right now who were alive when the Second World War began. Of course, they were little babies, but still, there are people alive today that were alive when the Second World War started. You know what I mean? So you start thinking like, oh, that was a long time ago. No, it was not. There are people who are sharing the same air that you're breathing right now. You know what I mean? Like they're still alive. They were alive then, they're alive now. It wasn't that long ago. So very interesting times coming up indeed. Couple that with the fact that Sweden, right? The old, everybody loves to talk about what a bunch of socialists, what a socialist utopia that Sweden is. Sweden, by the way, it kind of looks like they've reached their maximum. They've had it. And apparently they are going to be deporting tens of thousands of these people that they've brought in who just do nothing but sit around and accept welfare and light people on fire and splash acid in people's faces and drive their cars through crowds of innocent people. They're sick of it. They've had it. They have run their little socialist dream out to its inevitable conclusion, and they're just deciding like, okay, well, I guess we're just going to ship these people back because we can't have any more of this. Those are problems, right? Oh, one other little fun fact. You know who's not part of the EU? Switzerland. I love Switzerland, man. Those people, and by the way, if you ever have the chance, go visit Switzerland. That is one of, to my mind, it's probably the most breathtaking landscape on the planet. You know what I mean? It's just the entire nation of Switzerland is a castle made out of gigantic mountains. I mean, it's just awesome, and that has been their salvation the entire time. Right? The old thing like, hey man, we're just Switzerland over here. Like that means like we're neutral. And that's what Switzerland has always been. And you know where they get the strength to do that? They're like, hey man, if you want to pick a fight with us, good luck getting your troops and your equipment over those mountains. Good luck with that. You want to come pick a fight with us? You just bring all your men and your equipment right over those mountains. We'll be here yodeling and wearing lederhosen and drinking remarkable beer. You know what I mean? Once again, Switzerland is like, nah, we don't need to be a part of the EU. We don't want anything to do with you people. You people are crazy. You people start wars every few decades, and everybody gets killed. Like, and we're just up here in the mountains milking our cows and eating supreme chocolate. So, anyways, Switzerland. I like their stance. They're keeping their nose in their own business, and I respect that. Moving on, Judge Kavanaugh. So some lady says that 35 years ago, right, Brett Kavanaugh tried to force himself on her, right? 35 years ago. Now, listen, again, there's a side to this that's funny, and you might be thinking, like, Pete, like I'm listening to podcasts because I'm trying to, educate myself and, keep up on the times of whatever. I know you've already heard about the Judge Kavanaugh thing, but there is a deeper, more spiritual, like more metaphysical thing going on here. Is that in our nation, and I've beaten this horse to death, but I'm going to keep on beating it. But I'm going to keep on beating it. In our culture, we are, if we are accused of a crime, then we are innocent until proven guilty. Right? That's why the argument always shuts down. Like when you talk about Hillary Clinton. Yes, I completely believe that she is a criminal, and that she has committed treason against the United States of America, and that she should be prosecuted. And I believe that if she was prosecuted, she would be found guilty, and then she would therefore literally be eligible for the firing squad. And that, I think, is something that the people of the United States need to be able to see. Is that if you turn your back and you throw your own nation under the bus, then you get executed on live television. Like I know that sounds harsh, right? Pete, how can you call yourself a Christian and say these horrible things? It's like, well, because I have my own points of view. That's why. That's how I can say it, right? Here comes Judge Kavanaugh, and he's not being accused of selling 20% of our nation's uranium to somebody who allegedly is our enemy, right? He's not being accused of having emails subpoenaed, by the Supreme Court, and then having the servers in which those emails were stored on destroyed. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that. What is he being accused of? Something that happened when he was in high school, 35 years ago. Now we are, because of this whole Pound Me Too movement, we are in a place where a great many people in our nation do not believe that the idea of, innocent until proven guilty is a good idea. That we should, because of this surprise emergence of this evidence, I guess you would call it, that we should all just say, oh, I guess Kavanaugh's a bad person. Therefore, he should not be sit on the Supreme Court of the United States. That is a very dangerous and sobering fact that there is enough people out there in the United States who are looking at this saying, oh, well, he's just a bad guy. It's like, no. It's innocent until proven guilty. He has not been proven guilty. Hillary Clinton has not been proven guilty. I believe she's guilty, but nobody has proven it, right? Therefore, I would not be in favor of somebody going rogue and beginning to go out and execute justice on people that we all know are guilty, but we don't really know because they haven't gone to court yet. That's the thing, is like, dude, there has to be a court. There has to be judges and lawyers and jurists, and you know what I mean? Like there has to be that process. That's how we stay stable. And there's all these people coming out like, oh, look at Kavanaugh. You know what I mean? You can't question that lady because then you're enabling a rapist. Like that's what they believe. It's like, whoa. Where has this lady been for the last 35 years? Judge Kavanaugh has been climbing the ladder this entire time. Going from high school, where this alleged crime happened, then going off to college, and then going off to university, and then clerking for somebody, and then working for law firm and then becoming a judge and, da 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 da. And now you want to bring this up? It's been 35 years, lady. Like, this man has been rising in prominence the entire time. Why did you not think to protect your fellow citizens for the last 35 years with this information? You know what I mean? It's like, am I on crazy pills? How is it these people that are on the left that are like, oh no, if you question that lady, you're enabling a rapist. It's like, well, you don't find anything suspicious about the sequence of events? Nothing. You got nothing. 35 years ago, and you have no proof whatsoever. You have no witnesses. You have a bunch of other girls from Kavanaugh's high school class coming out and saying, and by a bunch, I mean, it was like over 20 of them, or maybe it was 16 of them, or whatever it was. It was a lot. There's all these other girls coming out saying, I remember going on dates with, young Brett Kavanaugh, and he was always a good Christian boy. We had a good time, So it's bizarre that this is happening, but I wanted to make sure that you keep your eye on this, because it's indicating where we are as a society of people. That there are people out there who want to completely scrap the idea of innocent until proven guilty. And that's alarming, because it's just like, as I said before, like, I believe that Hillary Clinton is guilty. I believe that Peter Strzok is guilty. I believe that John Kerry is a traitor, and I sincerely believe, in fact, I should probably do a segment on that, but, I believe that John Kerry violated the Logan Act, right? But the problem is that I'm not going to, walk around saying, oh, these people are guilty and they need to be, they need to be, somebody needs to kill these people, or somebody needs to throw these people in prison, or somebody needs to do this, or somebody needs, it's like, dude, the reason why I don't get more vocal about my firm conviction of these people's guilt as it applies to treason and whatnot is because I know that if I do that, and if I champion that cause where it's like, well, let's just move to the court of public opinion instead of relying on a judicial system where, we can attempt to prove people's guilt, and if we cannot do that, then they are therefore innocent. If we scrap that, then it will come back and work against us, or me. It'll come back against me. It will work against me at some point. These leftists in Europe that are like, listen, you people don't have free speech. You can't make funny little memes that insult people because it's now considered a hate crime. It's like, okay, listen, you're going to get away with that for a little while, but very soon that's going to turn on you. And it's going to work against you. Very soon. Right? So that's why I wanted to bring up the Kavanaugh thing, is that it's just be aware that there are people in our society that they don't have any love and appreciation for the fact that, the way that our judicial system is supposed to work, not that it always does, but the way that it's supposed to work is you are innocent until proven guilty. And that's a holy thing. And what do you do? What do you do to fix that? Well, you make sure that you teach your children civics, because they're not going to learn it in school. They don't teach that anymore in school. You have to make sure that your kids know what's in the Constitution and know what's in the Bill of Rights and know what those things mean. Because when they grow up, they're going to be the ones that are going to have to stand in the gap and say, no, Hillary Clinton, I hate her too, but she's not been proven guilty. Keep that in mind. She has not been proven guilty in a court of law. And Judge Kavanaugh, he has not been proven guilty. And these circumstances, this lady from 35 years ago when they were in high school, it's not enough, right? If this goes to court, and the thing is this is just dirty tactics by the left, Dianne Feinstein. They're not looking to champion the cause of justice. They're looking to smear this guy's name. And this is the level to which these people are willing to go. They're willing to destroy this man's career at any cost. Oh, and by the way, the lady that's accusing him of misdeeds 35 years ago, there's a whole story about how her family hated the Kavanaugh family. I could get into that, but I'm not going to because this is not a court of law. Anyways, Bible stuff. Now listen. If you're an atheist, I want you to stick around. I want you to hear this. Because listen, atheists, my friends, I'm telling you that if I was in the United States and we were in the same town, and if I said, hey, listen, come to church with me. Just come and sit and hang out, and then afterwards we're going to go get some barbecue. I can almost assure you that if you sat through a church service with me, like you would sit there as an atheist and hearing what the preacher was saying, you would probably sit there and say, bullshit. Oh, what a bunch of bullshit. I can almost assure you that I would call bullshit more times, with a greater number of times in that same service than you would. Right? Because I actually know what's in the book. Right? I've read it many times and I know what's in here. Right? But that being said, I don't want people to think that I am your typical toe the line at all expense type of Christian. I am not. My biggest my biggest contention with modern day Christianity is I don't see Christians asking hard questions. I almost said I don't see Christians asking the right question, but that's kind of an egotistical, very presumptuous kind of a statement. But I do believe that. But I certainly don't see Christians asking hard questions, right? I don't see Christians asking themselves like, well, why do I believe in God? Why do I believe any of this stuff? Because the horrible reality is that most people, in my estimation, believe what they believe because that's what their parents told them. Which isn't by itself, that's not a bad reason, right? But Christianity, a walk with Jesus, right? A walk in the way, or a relationship with the Almighty, it has to be yours. You have to own it. There is no such thing as Christianity by osmosis. You don't get to be born into Christianity. And believe me, there are, I would say the majority of because in Catholicism, it's like, Catholics believe that they were born into Catholicism. And that to me is like, that's almost obscene to me to have that kind of assertion. But my point is that a lot of Christians, they think that way. Well, I was born this way. My parents were Christians. Their parents were Christians. We have a long history. There's nothing wrong with having a good history of, a good family history of Christianity. But it's not enough. It has to be yours. Right? Nobody can be a Christian for you. Right? So it has to be yours. And if it's not, then in my experience, it's because Christian people have not been trained to ask hard, uncomfortable questions, right? Like this question. I tried to pick a good spot to start this line of dialogue, as we're going to be doing Bible stuff on a pretty regular basis. And I was trying to think of like a place to start, and I didn't want to start in Genesis chapter 1. Because it's like, there's a lot to get into there, but I wanted to get into just a question that would be kind of difficult. Look, if you read Scripture, I recommend, despite what people are going to say about this, I actually do recommend that you read out of the King James. Because of all of the these and the thous and the antiquated language that's used in the original King James, English people don't speak like that anymore. We don't use those words anymore. However, the words that are used in the King James Bible are a lot more descriptive than what the English language is to this day. And when you read the King James Version, there's a lot of times as you read it that it will force you to stop and find out, what does that word mean? There are things that jump off of the page a lot easier where it says, hey, red flag, everybody. You need to pay attention to what's being said here. And the way that you know that is because you don't understand what you just read. Because the words are weird. The words are antiques. And so you have to stop and you have to look it up, and that will usually lead you into learning a little bit of history about the people that are being spoken of then. Right? One of the things that happens to a grotesque degree in Christianity is we tend to look at these people, like when we read the gospel, we read about the life of Jesus Christ. We tend to look at these people like the way that we see them in movies. They're all speaking very properly. They all have like soft skin and nice hair and, whatever. And they're all very, proper kind of people. It's like, dude, that's not, like, you have to keep in mind, like, this was 2,000 years ago. There was no, there was no indoor plumbing. There was no electricity. You know what I mean? Everybody was poor, right? So, like, the meaning of the word poverty, for example, like when you read, like the Beatitudes, the very first one, what is it? Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit, right? Well, that should give you pause, because you have to think like, well, wait a minute, what is that word poor? What did that mean to those people? Because it doesn't mean the same thing that it means to us. In America, if you only have one car and you are so cash broke that you can't afford to pay for your insurance, you're a poor person, right? Did you hear what I just said? In America, if you have a car and you can't afford the the ancillary things that go along with it, you're a poor person. But you own an automobile and you have an iPhone or an Android. You know what I mean? Like in America, we don't have poverty. Not like it was 2,000 years ago. Because 2,000 years ago, poverty, like to be poor, it literally meant that you had, like, you were crippled. It literally meant like you had palsy, or you were, when you were born, like, your umbilical cord got wrapped around your neck and therefore your brain didn't work correctly for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like, to be poor meant that the word poor, it meant broken. Because there was, there were no, in America, we can drive out of the grocery store parking lot. We can see somebody sitting there. We can see a teenager sitting there, or, an able-bodied man sitting there panhandling, and it's like, dude, you're able-bodied. I give you, if I could, I would give you a 100% confidence that never happened 2,000 years ago. If you were able-bodied back then, you weren't out begging, because you'd get your ass kicked. The only people who begged were people who their bodies were broken. Their bodies didn't work. And if they were going to eat, it was going to be because some altruistic person came along and threw them a couple of shekels. That word poor, it had a completely different, like when you heard that word 2,000 years ago, it meant something different than what it means to you when you hear it. Because our concept of poor is very different. Right? Blessed are the poor in spirit. For they shall inherit the earth? No, theirs is the kingdom of God. Sorry, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. And there's a whole rabbit hole of significance that you can crawl into with just that one verse, and you could spend the rest of your life in it, because it goes back to something that it goes back to something that Isaiah said, and Jesus was actually quoting from that passage in Isaiah when God was explaining to Isaiah, like, listen, the brokenhearted, like the poor, the broken people, these are the only people who I allow in my presence. And I'll do a whole sermon on that sometime. But you see what I'm saying, like Bible stuff. I wanted to start off in a place where I'm not supposing answers to you. I just want to offer you some hard questions. Questions that you will not be able to immediately jump to some sort of absolute on, right? Questions that will make you struggle, questions that will last you for the rest of your life and you will never come to the end of it. Right? That's one thing in Christianity is, well, actually in all people, in all religions, you can find this everywhere, is that we need absolutes so badly that we will create one where there isn't one, right? We need absolutes, and when you take that approach to Scripture, when you jump immediately to absolutes, it's like, dude, you are completely missing the lesson here. You're not supposed to jump to an absolute. You're supposed to meditate on this question for the rest of your life. And you're never going to arrive. You will develop, you'll continue to develop, you'll get bigger, you'll get stronger, and wiser, and all those other things, but you will never be complete in that meditation because it keeps getting bigger. And that's why, like, you know, when you think about where God tells Moses, he says, okay, tell the people this, you know, here's the law that I've given you. Now meditate on it day and night. Meditate on this law day and night. That's what I expect of you as a nation. Meditate on it day and night. Why would you need to meditate on thou shalt not murder day and night? Why wouldn't you just be able to create an absolute, like, oh, okay, don't kill anybody. Got it. Don't kill innocent people. Got it. Got you, Lord. Next. I can move this off of my table. I never have to think about this again because it seems very clear that God doesn't want me to kill anybody. Why would you say, why would God tell people, like, this commandment that I've given you, that you shall not kill, why would you need to meditate on it day and night for the rest of your life? Right? Okay, God, you know, thou shalt not commit adultery. Got it. Don't put my ding dong in anybody's vagina that isn't my wife. Got it. Got it. No, that's not what God said. He said, this law that I've given you, I want you to meditate on it day and night for the rest of your life. But what we like to do is we like to create an absolute and then get it off of our table and not think about it anymore. And that's one of the problems with absolutes. But it's clear, and there's no theologian who can argue with me on this one. It is clear that God said, meditate on this law that I've given you, that you shall not commit adultery, you shall not bear false witness, right? Easy. Don't be a lying ass. Don't be a damn liar. Got it, Lord. No, that's not what God said. He said, meditate on it day and night for the rest of your life. And you'll never get to the bottom of this pit. It just gets deeper and deeper and deeper and more, you know, has more moving parts and whatever. And when you come to an absolute and you say, okay, I guess God just doesn't want us to have sex with people who aren't our wives. It's like, okay, well, now you have an absolute and you've broken the commandment of the Lord when he told you. No, keep thinking about this. What did I mean by this? Keep thinking about it. Well, for how long? Why can't I just abstain from screwing other women? Because there's riches. The reason I told you to meditate on this day and night is because there's something in it for you. And I want you to have it. Right? And that's why I get so weird about, like, determinism and, you know, with Sam Harris and you know, the fact that Sam Harris's whole thing is a regurgitated argument from 500 years ago called Calvinism. And I didn't like that argument then because that's what Calvinism and what's the other dispensationalists. In Christianity, there is a group of large section of Protestant Christianity that they're called dispensationalists. And what they say is like, well, the reason why there are no miracles anymore is because the miracles were for those people, and that has to be good enough. those miracles were done for those people so that we might learn and believe in them 2,000 years ago. But to me, it's like, well, that's a cop-out. You've come up with this absolute because you can't face the fact that you don't see miracles. And you don't know what to do about it. So you've made up this bullshit rule that says, oh, well, the reason why there's no more miracles today is because that was for them and it's not for us. Okay, well, that's completely, you can't find that in Scripture. And what you've done is you've created an absolute so that you don't have to think. And you don't have to ask the hard question of why is it that I don't see miracles? Why is it that I cannot perform miracles like Jesus said, when it was clear that Jesus said that we were supposed to be doing even more mystical, miracles than he did. He said that. But you fabricated an absolute, and therefore it enabled you to stop thinking, stop asking the hard questions. And so I want to do my part to revive that lost art in Christianity of asking the hard questions. So that was my introduction to Bible stuff. Let me start off here. All right. Atheists, as you know, the Christian peoples, believe in Jesus Christ. They believe that Jesus Christ was a manifestation of God on earth, that God himself came down and made himself human and walked amongst us and allowed himself to be sacrificed on our behalf. That he was simultaneously the Son of God and simultaneously God himself. That's what the Christian people believe. Dear atheist, I understand that you don't believe that, but play along, right? Because whether you like it or not, you are living in a civilization that the sole reason why you have it as good as you do is because of the long history of Christianity in your national history. So who was this Messiah? Why does there need to be a Messiah? I come up with crazy questions like, well, why 2,000 years ago, right? The Messiah, there is a prophecy about the Messiah in the very first couple of chapters of the very first book of the Bible. Like the prophecy about the Messiah is a common thread throughout all of biblical history, right? The Christians believe that Jesus Christ was the Messiah, and the Jewish people are still anticipating the arrival of the Messiah. But the one thing that we all agree on is that there is in fact a Messiah coming, right? We're waiting for the second arrival. The Jews are still waiting on the first, but the common ground that we have is that we all believe that there is a coming Messiah. So that kind of, there's a couple of interesting questions that can be asked just on that alone. Is like, well, why 2,000 years ago? What was so significant about the times of 2,000 years ago that would cause God to decide, like, okay, this is the right time for me to be showing up, to fulfill this thing that I've said that I was going to do this entire time? Why then, right? Someday I'll do a show on that, because I have, I think I have a fun way to think about that. But today we're going to work on why a Messiah at all, right? Why would you need one? Why wasn't, the lamb that God slew in the Garden of Eden to cover Adam and Eve's sin, and the blood that was shed that day, why wasn't that enough? Right? Why wasn't it enough to have Moses come along? Because think about it. This whole thing, I mean, it began with Father Abraham, right? Father Abraham has many sons. Started with Abraham, but really Moses was the guy, right? Moses was the guy that God spoke to with his voice, and it says he spoke face to face with Moses, and for the first time, he gave like a written prescription of like, okay, this is what I want from you, right? Number one, you shall love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. And so on and so forth, with the 10 commandments and then the 613 points of the law. And this was the first time that God expressed himself in this manner. And so for the Jew, Moses is the most holy man, right? And for the Christian, it's Moses is like the second most holy man, right? In order of rank of historical importance, it goes Jesus Christ is number one for the Christian, and then Moses is number two, and not very far behind, right? We need, without Moses, there is no Christianity, right? So here's this point. This is Deuteronomy chapter 18, and starting from verse 15. I want you to hear this because it raises a profound and profoundly uncomfortable question. So as I read, verse 15, it says, "The Lord your God will raise up from you a prophet like me from amongst you." Now hold on a second here. This is right as Moses is saying goodbye to the people of Israel, right? Moses was the giver of the law, God's perfect and complete law, right? So let me read this again. It says, "The Lord your God will raise up from you a prophet like me from amongst you. He will be one of your brothers," meaning he's going to be a Jew. "And it is to him that you shall listen. Just as you desired of the Lord your God at Horeb on the day of the assembly, when you said, 'Let me not hear again the voice of the Lord, or see this great fire anymore, lest I die.' And the Lord said to me," so on and so forth. But this is Moses announcing that someday there's going to be a Messiah, and when he shows up, he will be from amongst the 12 tribes, right? So I'll read it one more time. It says, "The Lord your God will raise up from you a prophet like me," because I'm a prophet and I was raised up by God, and he's going to do that again, is what he's saying. "And he's going to be one of your brothers," and this is the part you have to listen to, "and it is to him you shall listen." All right, now this is profound in its implications, because what he's saying is like, okay, you guys know me, I'm Moses, right? Now God spoke to me to my face, and the reason I was able to save you from 400 years of slavery, and the reason why like the Red Sea parted, and the reason why we walked around for 40 years and never missed a meal, like that's because of God, and I am his representative. Everything that you are going to be as a people is going to be because I have told you what the Lord has said. I'm the guy, right? I'm not just the president. I'm the king and the emperor and everything. There's nobody in the world who's more important than me, because God has spoken to me and he's told me these things, and you have to follow it now, or else you're going to be outside of this great God's will. But every time you read it, understand two things. Number one, you are reading what God said, number one. And number two, I'm the one who brought it to you. I'm a very important guy, right? Moses is saying, not me. So why the second order? What he's saying here is when this guy shows up, you're going to stop listening to me. I'm going to cease to be the guy. When this guy shows up, I will no longer be the guy. Then you're going to have to go listen to him. Why? Remember that scene in A Few Good Men? Colonel Jessup. If you told him to keep your hands off of Santiago, why the second order? You said people follow your orders, or else people die. It's that simple. Why the second order, Colonel Jessup? Right? Why the second order? Why would Moses say, like, listen, I've given you the word of God, but there's somebody coming up, and he'll be one of you, right? He'll be one of your brothers. And when he shows up, you're going to stop listening to me, and you got to listen to him. Why the second order? Why does there need to be somebody else to come along and be the giver of the law? and be of greater importance than Moses himself. Why? Right? Now, I'll give you a couple of fun little things to think about. Right? When Jesus spoke about the law, and he spoke about it exhaustively. And this is kind of one of the funny things about Christianity is that, like, look, we have 4 Gospels, and Matthew is the largest of those Gospels. And all 4 Gospels are very similar to one another. Most of the Gospels contain the same stories, right? You read all 4 Gospels, and there's like 1 or 2 stories in each book that the other 3 books don't have. But for the most part, it's the exact same story, just expressed with different focuses. Like one of them, it focuses on Jesus's adherence to the law, and the other one focuses on Jesus's loving nature, like the book of John the Beloved. Like each of them have their own sort of flavor, if you will, right? But for the most part, it's the same story. And Jesus Christ had a 3-year ministry where apparently the guy talked nonstop. He was constantly teaching. If he was not sleeping or if he was not meditating out on his own, because it says he liked to go to the Garden of Gethsemane regularly. He liked to go out into the wilderness, into the garden, and he would, do overnighters and whatever. He would just go be alone. And if he wasn't doing that, or if he wasn't sleeping, he was teaching the entire time. In fact, John, in the book of John, he even says that at the end of the book. He's like, look, the guy talked nonstop, and there's no way we can write down everything he said. We would spend the rest of our lives doing it, and we just, we've got other stuff we got to get done. So we have, in this 3 years, God on earth spoke, and every word that came out of his mouth was precious. And how much of that do we have? About 8 hours of it. Right? In Jesus Christ's 3-year ministry, where he spoke nonstop, we have about 8 hours of it. Right? So right there we have to look at what Jesus said. Like whatever it is that we have to look at that as being precious. Because it's this little tiny sliver of everything that he said. So we don't have very much in context of how much was actually said. And in those writings, Jesus talks about the law many times. Right? Like you go to whatever. I'm not going to pull it up right now, but Jesus, he's talking to the people and he says, look, you've heard it said before, thou shalt not kill. But I say to you, if you look at your brother and you have hatred in your heart without a cause, then that's murder. You've already murdered that guy in your heart, with your heart, right? So we take that, and what he's saying is when he says, well, you heard it said before, what he's saying is Moses told you that God said, thou shalt not murder. But as according to the prophet, as according to the prophet Moses, I'm here now. Moses said that somebody was coming along, and when I show up, you then have to listen to me, because I'm going to break it all down for you. I'm going to tell you everything that all these laws mean. And what this murder thing meant. Like Moses heard one thing. God told Moses something, and what Moses heard was, don't murder people. And Jesus shows up 1,500 years after Moses, and he says, okay, I'm here. This is I understand this is what you heard from Moses. You have heard before from Moses that thou shalt not murder. But now I'm here. And I'm telling you that if you have hatred in your heart against your brother without cause, that's murder. And God wasn't saying, I want you to abstain from murdering that other guy. God wasn't saying that as a method of protecting the other guy. He was saying, I'm trying to protect you. I'm trying to protect your heart from murder. Murder is bad for the other guy, but murder is bad for you. And I'm trying to bring about what's good for you. And somehow Moses must have known this because he said it. He says, listen, God told me the law. I wrote it down best I could, and I gave it to you as clearly as I could. But the Lord your God will raise up from you a prophet like me from amongst you and from your brothers. And then when he shows up, to him you will listen. That's who the Messiah was. And by the way, if you go through the Gospels and you look at every single time where Jesus is addressing Mosaic law, every single time he turns the law back on you. You heard don't murder people, but I say to you, it's in your heart. Murder is in your heart, and I'm trying to keep you from murdering people in your heart because murder is bad for you. And then he goes on and he addresses, in the very next verse, he addresses, committing adultery. And he says, you've heard it said before, right? So again, he's saying, like, Moses told you, don't cheat on your wife. But I say to you, right? But I say to you, Moses is no longer the authority. He announced when I would show up, and that when I show up, I will then be the authority. Here I am. I am the authority now, and I am telling you that if you look on another woman to lust, that's adultery. That's adultery. Adultery is bad for your spouse. It is bad for your children. It is bad for your community. But God is saying, like, I wasn't trying to protect them. I was trying to protect you. Because lusting in your heart after people, it's bad for you. It'll turn you into a weirdo and a pervert. I'm trying to protect you. And every single time you go through the Gospels, every time Jesus addressed, because we don't have very many examples of it, but surely Jesus went through all 613 points of the law one by one with the disciples. I can't prove that because we only have about 8 hours of what Jesus actually said. Right? But what we do have is a pattern of Jesus addressing the law one by one. And every time we see him doing it, we see that he's saying the reason why. Right? Moses said, don't pick corn on the Sabbath. Right? Remember the Pharisees came to him and they're like, hey, Moses said, don't pick corn on the Sabbath. And he's like, guys, come on. The Sabbath, God did not make man to observe the Sabbath. God made the Sabbath to serve man. The Sabbath is for you. It's to protect you. And if you're hungry and it's the Sabbath, you can pick some corn if you need to. The Sabbath, it's for you. Every single time. Jesus turns the law back on the people and says, no, this was for your protection. This was not something for you as a means to please God. This was something God gave you to please you, to make your life better, to protect your life. Right? So the question here is, why the need for a Messiah? Why is it that Moses was unable to take this word as it is that he heard it directly from the Lord's mouth? Why was he not able to explain it to the people the way that Jesus did? Why is it that we find him here in Deuteronomy 18 verse 15 saying, look, you people listen to me now, and that's right and that's good because I am I'm a prophet, I'm sent by God to speak on his behalf. And there's nobody more important than me, but someday there's going to be another person coming. And when he shows up, you're going to need to stop listening to me and listen to him. Why? It's a hard question. Meditate it on for the rest of your life. Hey, listen, thanks for tuning in. If you want to support the show, go on to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com. You can become a Patreon member or a PayPal guy, whatever you want to do. But please, if for nothing else, please hit subscribe. That's the big one. And I will talk to you tomorrow.